Hello everybody, thanks for tuning in to Weather and Earth 25 for the newest video prediction that I have covering most of February and all of March 2021. Happy New Year to those that have returned to my channel. It's been a few months since I've made a video, mainly due to some computer issues that I've been having, but now I'm back at it again and I got some fresh predictions here for you. It might get very busy very soon, so it'll be important to post this video before February probably goes crazy. Hopefully March won't be as insane. But at least, the year has started in a somewhat positive note. We haven't really had any monstrous natural disasters in January, So that's good. But will this continue? Will this fortune continue? It's not guaranteed. And the way things are looking, it would not be surprising if February changes things significantly. So, without much further ado, guys, let's start. Alrighty, so just like in all the other videos, here we have a chart for February 2021. This is my astronumerology chart that shows the natural disaster risk, and out of all those lines that you see there, the one we're going to pay attention to is the yellow-orange line, which is the sum of all the indicators, which is numerology, Chinese astrology, and Western zodiac. Of these three, numerology and Chinese astrology are the most important that I use to come up with these graphs, and basically we're looking for any dates that have a yellow-orange line point above the number 6 on the chart. As you can see, there's also a gray line going from level 6 across horizontally, which separates risk days from days that are not considered risk days. And as you can see, February has all kinds of risk days. Those around level 6 to almost all the way up to nearly the maximum level. I see a couple 9s and even a 10 on there. This indicates an extremely powerful month. This is not your typical risk month. So yeah, it's probably going to be very busy. So just looking at the graph here, the first few days of February started off more or less average. But then on the 4th, it went up to 7.5. Dropped a little bit on the 5th, but then it really goes back up to about a 9 on February 6th, which is around the time of this video. I'm actually speaking right now on the morning of February 5th. I'm not sure if I'll be able to post this video before the 6th, but definitely want to have it ready before the next giant peak coming up in the middle of the month. The 7th and the 8th of February still has a little bit of risk. That's the tail end of this current risk period. Then we go into a bit of a break until we get to February 11th. On February 11th, there's actually a short but quick level 7 peak. This is often associated with possible earthquakes or other sudden events, so that date might bear watching for that. February 6th, we'll see what happens. Hopefully it won't be a very nasty date, but if something were to happen on that day, it might be an earthquake or a serious weather event. Interestingly enough, going forward again to February 11th, this is actually the latest, the last date of the year of the rat, which is the metal rat, which covered all of not all of 2020, but January 25th, 2020, all up through February 11th, 2021. So on February 12th, we start the new year. Instead of the rat, it is now the Chinese year of the metal ox, which starts on February 12th. Interesting fact just to throw out there. But this might not make much of a difference when it comes to risk dates, because the way these are calculated, the Chinese astrology takes into consideration a combination of the day, month, and year, animal signs, and elements. So there's always going to be positive and negative combinations, no matter what year it is. But hey, hopefully the ox year brings better fortune for the world than this insane metal rat year that we went through in 2020, which brought all kinds of disasters. From a pandemic, which, is something I don't really predict, but also to severe hurricanes and a lot of other natural disasters that struck the world in 2020. Floods, fires, you name it. Well, moving on this graph, we have a bit of a break from the 12th to the 14th, and then suddenly on February the 15th, we have a giant leap all the way up to level 9. And then we hold on to some sort of risk all up through February the 18th before the next break. So that risk period, February 15th through the 18th, will take on the level of its strongest date, which is February 15th, so that's a level 9 risk period. So this could be a very significant weather event time frame because we have 4 risk days back to back. So maybe severe weather or a terrible winter storm or probably a major flood or even a cyclone in the southern hemisphere could be something to look for during those days. But also at the very start and end of that period, namely February 15th and February 18th, we might want to look out for a potential earthquake or sudden event, because these things also tend to happen at the start and end of longer risk periods, aside from just the single dates, like February 11th in this case, which is a single date. So we got 15th through the 18th of February covered. Now we go forward again. A bit of a break, 19th through the 20th, 21st, there's a tiny little jump up to level 6. And then look what happens, guys. Look at February 22nd. Shoots up all the way to level 10. This is a rarity. We probably don't see this very often, if at all, on most given years. Some years you don't even have a level 10 date. Apparently 2021's first level 10 date is February 22nd. What does this mean? Simply means the risk level is higher, so the chances for something happening on that date are higher than most of the other dates of this, well, basically all the other dates of this month. But that's about it. It's still a probability, so it's not set in stone that this day will be a major disaster date, but the risk is certainly there. We drop all the way back down to level 6 on 23rd February, and then we rise again on the 24th into the 25th to another secondary peak, reaching 8.5. And then we kind of flatline from the 26th to the 28th of February around level 7. So basically February 21st through February 28th is one whole risk period, and it has 2 peaks on the 22nd and then on the 24th and 25th. If I was to look at this, it's kind of a complicated prediction, but I would say anything is possible, and probably more than one event happening at the same time during that week, the last week in February. Probably major severe weather outbreak, potential winter storms, potential major cyclones in the southern hemisphere. I wouldn't be surprised if there's more fires in Australia. I wouldn't be surprised if there was also a major earthquake at the very beginning of that risk period, from the 21st into the 22nd, especially the 22nd. I mean, that date sticks out like a sore thumb. 24th, 25th carries a little bit of earthquake potential as well, but since it's in the middle of the risk period, not as much as the 22nd. The 28th might also be an earthquake date because that is the last day of that risk period. March 1st actually drops below the gray line, as you will see in a bit. So, yep, February definitely looking very, very interesting. And it looks like the high risk comes in waves, evenly spread out throughout the whole month. The early, the middle, and later part of the month are all fair game for some sort of major natural disaster. So, yeah, we're going to have to be on guard in February, I think. And, well, that's what this looks like. So, I guess we'll see. We'll see what happens. Now, let's move on to the month of March 2021. And you're about to see a big difference. Here we go. Alrighty, so now this is March 2021. Look at the difference in this graph compared to the last one. Yeah, it's a big difference. We still have a graph that at the lower extreme has level 0 and at the highest extreme has level 11. And as you can see, this graph is much more flat than February's. There are several dates that are below the gray line at level 6, and just a few that really go high up, anything higher than 7. Most of the actual dates that are above the gray line in the month of March are barely above the level 6 mark. In fact, most of these are around 6 to 7 or maybe 7.5 tops. Only the very last part of the month has anything close to 8. So overall, this translates like a lower risk month compared to February. So let's get into a few details here and just start on March 1st, which actually is right below the gray line, separating the last risk period from February into the very beginning of March. March 1st doesn't have much risk, if any. March 2nd has even less risk. So these dates are in the clear. But then we have a small peak on March 3rd. This date is by itself at 6.5, level 6.5. So that puts it between low and medium risk category. Since it's a single date, this could be a sudden event, probably a mild to moderate earthquake would be my best prediction. Although a tornado could also fit this. Something that happens suddenly, that takes only one day to happen. After this date, it quiets down somewhat from March 4th through March 6th, looking fairly well there, until we have our next risk period that starts on March 7th and carries into the 9th. Basically another 6.5 level, so it's between low and medium, so moderate in this case. It's a little bit longer, about 3 days this time around, so I would say a potential weather event could be the case here. Maybe a severe weather outbreak, but nothing too crazy. It quiets down after March 9th a little bit. And then we have another little peak on March 12th, followed by another little peak on March 14th. These two dates are also in the low to low medium category, so probably another set of moderate earthquakes or other sudden events without much severe consequence are possible. Nothing crazy, just dates worth mentioning. After the 14th, it drops off quite a bit. A nice looking date on March 16th. It's probably one of the best dates I've seen in a long time. Hopefully that's true and it's a nice break. Especially after, all the madness that might happen in February. At least the first half of March is looking fairly decent. But after this date, on March 17th, we have a pretty significant jump that goes up to 7.5. So this is actually one of the stronger dates of March. And then it holds around this risk from the 18th to the 19th, before dropping just a little bit on the 20th and the 21st, before dropping below the gray line, but barely on the 22nd. And then it rises right up again on the 23rd onwards. And we don't really see it drop below the gray line until March 31st. So this is a really long risk period. And there's a few peaks there on the 17th, then the 19th, and then also further up on the 27th, the 29th, and the 30th. What could this mean? Well, the strongest date out of that bunch is actually March 30th, and that actually scores an 8, which is the beginning of the high-risk category. Every other date is around the medium. So this is a medium to high-risk period, and it's a very long one, so we're looking at a potential weather event, most likely something that lasts several days. My best thinking would be rounds of severe weather to potential flooding events because of a lot of rain and, severe storms causing flooding over the same region. It tends to happen a lot in parts of the world in the second half of March. The Americas, especially the United States, would be one of the places I would think of. But also the South Pacific. There could be a few cyclones causing flooding in the Southern Pacific, including Australia. I would not be surprised. So they might go from fires and drought to cyclones. That'll be something. Hopefully that's not the case, but definitely looking like a weather scenario for the second half of March, although earthquakes are also possible around March 17th through the 19th, and also around March 29th, 30th. The 30th in particular could have a very strong earthquake risk out of that whole bunch, since it's at the very end of the risk period, and it's actually a very not a highly intense date, but one of the strongest dates out of this whole chart. So it bears watching and definitely worth mentioning. But yeah, Compared to February, though, I mean, this chart looks fairly normal. It doesn't look bad. It doesn't look severe. It looks fairly average to even slightly below average compared to other months that I've done these charts for. So I would actually say that March 2021 overall might actually be a fairly decent month for the world, probably free of major natural disasters at least. And if any disasters do happen, they're probably not going to be that frequent. The risk for disaster in March is definitely lower than it is in February of this year. So at least that's the good news. Okie dokie, now that we got the charts of February and March covered, we can go ahead and proceed. So here comes the rest of the video showing the written predictions for February and March 2021, also including the maps, the world maps that have the risk states as well as the risk regions for every kind of possible events that I'm mentioning here. Just like in my past videos, so you guys can have a better understanding and view of what I think might be happening in the next 7 to 8 weeks. So, all right, let's move on. Okay, my friends, so now you've seen the predictions for February and March 2021. Once again, thanks for watching this video, and I hope you find it useful in some sort of way. It looks like February is definitely going to be a big month to keep an eye out for. Probably a lot of natural disasters are going to be happening in the next few weeks. Hopefully I'm wrong and all this is just not correct at all, and February turns out being a nice month for the world. And hopefully March turns out being a decent month, as it might be according to these charts. So all I gotta say is best of luck to the world in the coming weeks, and that's it. Thanks for watching the video, and I'll see you guys again for April and May 2021. Have a great rest of your day, whatever day you're watching, and till next time, bye.